Man, go ahead.
Hey, that was a bad sister there.
Yeah, man.
Hey, look, they sleep on Fanny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna probably put some of her clips up on my Instagram or Facebook because she look. I keep telling everybody because we got these country accents that don't make us dumb. They think I be bullshitting. Look, Big Mama call them people about the fields and say go in there and fix the problem. We coming to fix it.
Ain't no doubt.
Look, Fannie Lou came to fix this shit. She wasn't bullshitting. She was not bullshit. She came to fix this shit. It's just that her people wasn't ready. See, any one of us individually could be ready, but when is the people going to be ready is the $1 million question. Right? When they going to realize that the motherfuckers told you was from somewhere you wasn't from. You at home, you been at home, and another motherfucker in your house that need to leave. Because he got the kids fighting each other. He got the sister fighting the mama and the daddy fighting the son. What kind of dumbass shit is that?
But Rod, check this out. Why do all his brothers think they got to do some shit first? The template is, you've been saying, the template is already there. When we get in a position, niggas is gonna get tapped for their work that they did and stuff. They're gonna get tapped to be put in position, so they don't have to worry about. Just come together on one. It's that simple. I want to shout out my short giant, New Carre, my wife, but that's a bad mo. I'm gonna just chop that out. And but they're just like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the incoming information, you say on the one. Remember the Million Man March speech by Farrakhan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said when you hear the A tone, right?
Right.
Where we gonna be at?
We gonna be on the one.
He said we gonna be at one.
Right, at one. That's
take
right.
The A and the T and you separate it from the next three letters, it's at one.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why I gave you the A tone. To make the loop. To make the loop tied.
So this question right here is for the brother Young Elder. So with the Nuwabic language being presented in more of a musical form, do you from your perspective, do you think that this is a way for more people to be able to intertwine and attune themselves with those frequencies? And if so, explain a little bit. Is the brother there?
That's for you, Young Elder.
Go ahead, Rod. Take it away.
Well, the thing is this. It's all about frequency, and the language is about frequency. If we looking at developing a mentality or mindset on a higher frequency, we need a language to compel the mind to operate at a higher frequency.
Okay.
That was the purpose of Nuwapic. So the language is necessary. It's just that we got to start with the youth. A lot of the elder people is too stubborn to learn a new language.
Now, I'm going to be all the way honest with you, right? So I've had this conversation for quite some time now. And one of the brothers that I grew up with named Batin, he from New York, but he lives in Virginia now. He and I was speaking about that. And he was the person that actually directed me to TikTok. He was like, man, you need to go to TikTok because there's more youth there. And with the youth, you can do more because, just their ability to be able to, grasp and memorize to a certain degree. And that from my perspective, I think we need all people. But I understood what he was saying as far as with different age groups and how once when you've reached a certain age, it's kind of more difficult to try to retain a whole nother language, especially with difficult sounds. However, the mass majority of the people in the class are of the older age group, and they're actually getting it down pat. I don't know if it's their skills and ability, their desire, or, the teaching method that I'm presenting, or a combination of both, but they're definitely getting it.
I think
the ones that's coming as older people that's coming to you to learn are the ones that's still willing to learn. They come to you childlike. Right. Gotcha. That means that they come open to learn. That's what that means. when you look at a lot of the older people, though, as we get up in the higher in the age bracket, the less enthusiasm to learn an entire language is there. They get comfortable in their lifestyles and they don't want to learn nothing new. But if they learn something new, it'll give them a new outlook on life. It's just like detailing the car, fixing up the old car. When you detail it, make it fresh, you want to drive that mug around and let people see it. It gives you a new vigor for life to develop new skills over time. But the youth are already calibrated. When they hear the language, they was born based off the beat and the music that's been playing, more apt to draw to the language than a regular adult.
I agree with that too, because it's like something about the youth that they're like so excited. Like when they start learning Nuwabic, I'm talking about they fucking enthusiasm be through the roof. It be through the roof. And another thing that I don't want to forget this, brother. I want to give a shout out to the brother, Dr. Karam Ellis, and his family, his mate, and his children. When I tell you that they are the epitome of what a Nuwabian family should be, as far as being on the language level, they are the epitome. He sent me a few videos that his wife and his children and him basically recorded as far as like going through the process, because he raised his children up with fluent Nuwabic, no English in the household. And when I tell you he did a damn good job, that's my dude right there, Dr. Karam Ellis. Shout out.
That's what's up. I got a homeboy in Detroit, Zosar Moon, who's a Nuwabian. He teach his children, been teaching his children since they was born. He don't even speak to them in English in the house.
That's how Dr. Karam is. Like, you got to see his videos. Like, he also basically was telling me on one of the lives that he did with me, from his perspective, as far as like how to get the other different aspects that come along with language. For example, he said he noticed that once when he started teaching his children Nuwabic from birth, that cut the TV out. So then they had to create things that was relative for them to watch. So he started actually doing Nuwabic plays, or with the what do you call it, like a ventriloquist type thing where you got the two puppets and one hand.
The puppet show.
The puppet show, right? He created the puppet show, and then he started to actually create music in it. His wife and him, which the master teacher used to also have them down on Tamaray, singing and rapping and stuff in Nuwabic. But he basically showed his creativity that once when the language English was eradicated and Nuwabic, replaced it, that the other social elements or aspects of social life that was needed to be replaced, that required, the language to be spoken while actually viewing it, they actually implemented it. And that shit worked. It worked. Young Elder back in the building. We had a question for you, Young Elder. You there? I think your mic muted.
Hey, yeah, my phone I got it on charger. My phone went dead.
Oh. Yeah, we had a question for you. So you gave me a example of like the language, right? That's what we was just talking about, the Nuwabic. And you said that in 10 years, this would be one of the methods that would probably be one of the best ways to teach. Now let's fast forward past the method and get to a generation of people, a population of people that were born and raised speaking Nuwabic fluently. How do you envision their interaction with the world would be? And can you compare and contrast their interaction in that day and time in contrast to their interaction now?
Yeah, by 2030, if you keep this format, it'll be everybody will be speaking it, and the language is one of the main key points to your nationality, to me, because the language is going to give you your own tribal tongue, and it's going to make unite us more as a people. It'll give us something that we got that's everybody else don't got. And but everybody else got it, but they got their own. You know what I'm saying? They got their own. The Mexicans got even though they speak in Spanish, and that's like from conquerors, and they really spoke another language. I'm gonna get into that on a different species evolution of human species. While I talk about the Sans people's language. Really, the Chinese language is the origin of it is from the Sanskrit language, from Sans people, these Sans people, and the Hindus mixing in together, and but the language, and that Chinese language is from a Creole of over time of the click language that the Sans people speak and the Sanskrit from the Hindus, right? Maybe one of the reasons why they call it Sanskrit connected with the Sans people, because the Sans people is the oldest species on the planet as far as humanoids go. Yeah, and so yeah, that over time, in about 10 years, everybody will be speaking, and then what it'll do is we'll be more intelligent. It'll open up more compartments in our brain that need to be unlocked through the language as part of the DNA. See, it's a lot of codes in our DNA that's being unlocked right now. Like as the brother Rod Hayes revealed all of the stuff that he's revealing, because a lot of people weren't talking about none of the stuff he was talking about. They weren't looking at it from that perspective that he gave. So yeah, the brother Rod is a legend in my book because with the perspective that he gave, it gave me another look at this thing. And another thing is what the language will do. We can be more. Like I say, the main thing, it'll build more of us a unity as a nation with the language. You know what I'm saying? I see it in 10 years us speaking it, and we'll be accepted. We don't gotta accept. They don't gotta accept us. We gotta accept them. See all those suckers that folks that didn't help us, while those dirty Moors was over here taking advantage of us. Nobody came and like I'm gonna tell you, a lot of them. Hey, Hakeem, you gotta go in there with it. A lot of those a lot of those other races who wasn't with the dirty Moors, but they knew what they was doing. They never did tell us. They never did say straight up. Like the people that was on that train the other day when I was in Houston, those Mexicans, they saw me with my Native American attire on, and they were talking in Spanish, saying, "I wonder, do he know that they are the original people and that these they got took advantage of?" And I'm saying to myself, if they speak English, why they ain't telling me this? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
it's a journey of self-discovery, is why.
Okay,
can't nobody tell you who you is. You have to figure out who you is by how you vibe with the earth.
Okay, go ahead.
This is why all of the foreigners come over here and live off us, because we the salt of the earth. We the flavor. All things spring and come forth from this land, the great Atlant. They call it Atlantis, right? We the Atlanteans. And so when we give the culture in arts and entertainment to the world, we spiced it. Imagine life with no music, right? How miserable would that shit be? But we'll still find the music because we'll be listening to the birds sing, the crickets chirping, and the frogs quirking, right? Because we would have to find a form of musical expression to match our emotional development. Music is intricately tied to who we are. They know this. That's why they exploit us in the industry, because they know we know how to reach each other no matter what musical genre it is. We can get the message through the music. So they want to control the messages that we put in the music so that they can give us the false pretense. Like they came out with mumble rap because they know that we can't really tell what somebody's saying. But you know what it told me? They mumbling because they're not free to say what they want to say. Right? So now I got to answer that grievance. Right? So when you answer the grievance, what's the remedy? Take the motherfucking industry and decentralize it. Let every artist own his own shit because it's his shit he created. And then if you want to aid and assist the artist, you be a facilitator of allowing him to express himself to the world, and he give you a fee. You don't pay him, he pay you.
Muhammad before me. He was old and wrinkled up, and I was fucked up. He wasn't supposed to be old and wrinkled up according to how he to live. But then he told me, because that was the first thing I want to know. If you God, right, and I'm talking to one they call Master Muhammad, the Sufi mystic, the one that they're trying to figure out what happened to him. And I know what happened to him, and I know where he at. I know where the body was, all that. But I'm not going to get into that because that's not necessary for this video. Master Muhammad told me the reason why he was all wrinkled and aged. He said because he was done with this physical form. He said, I began to eat 3 meals a day. I said, well, why would you do that if you're supposed to eat 1 meal a day and you're supposed to do everything according to righteousness? He said, look, I ate 3 meals a day because it accelerates my decay. It accelerates my breakdown. It didn't make no sense to me. I didn't realize until last year after my graduation it was a riddle. And this is what the riddle was. He was telling me that at this day and time, the old ways would be hampered by greed That's what he was telling me. When he showed himself as being aged, he's telling me this is the old ways. This is the old stuff, the old energy. And it's going to be hampered from the rebirth of the new energy by the 3 meals a day represented the greed. Because according to How to Eat to Live, if you're eating 3 meals a day, you're greedy. That's just that simple. You're greedy. 7 deadly sins. Jealousy, envy, lust, greed, number 4. So greedy, what will make a person greedy? Deprivation. Deprivation is the fertilizer for greed. Who's been deprived? The American so-called Negro. Since he's been here, he's been deprived. Been deprived of everything that the Christ was deprived of in the crucifixion. He's been deprived of knowledge itself. Thorns on his head. Deprived of the right to build his own stuff with his hands nailed to the cross. Deprived of the right to walk the land freely with his feet nailed to the cross. And his blood has been contaminated against his will, thus seen by the spirit of destiny as it mixes the blood in the urine. It's in your face. But I have to show you that it's in your face or you won't believe me. It's right there. The whole story is right there. So the judgment that Anu, who was authorized to issue a judgment because his rank was higher, issued the judgment on Nebuchadnezzar as the story is told. That's Hiram. That's the story of Hiram. Part of it. Part of it is in Ezekiel. Some of it is in the other lesser prophets. It's all there though. The whole, it's broke up. They use homonyms and synonyms. All of this stuff is relevant. They use star charts to confuse you because they know the stars not going to change. And that's one of the few things that they put in the books, no matter which one it is, that you can always check for frame of reference. They're not allowed to change anything stellar. If you see them write about a star, study that intently, because that's one of the few things that, according to the rules of this universe, they cannot change that on Earth where it cannot be referenced with the stars. Any book that they call a religious book, if it got stellar references, that's your starting point. Match the stars up first. Then match the stories up that fall under the stars. And then it'll clear itself up. You won't need nobody to do it for you. You won't need nobody. So this is why they keep telling you that it's astrotheology in the Bible, in the Quran, the Judaic religions. All they telling you is that everything man can change on earth, he can't change the stars in the sky. So your elders, your ancestors, was wise enough to know this. So everything they did, they tied it directly to the stars so that you can read it in real time as it unfolds on earth. And that's why I pointed out when I was telling everyone Hiram was raised. The stars point to the Orion belt. Who is Orion? The great and mighty hunter. Who was the great and mighty hunter? Nimrod. Who was Nimrod? The one they feared. Who was the one they feared? The only one they couldn't defeat, Sun Wukong. Well, what happened to Sun Wukong? Sun Wukong met the Buddha. The Buddha sent him to tame his Sakoma, his monkey man. He named him Hanuman as he became realized because he said, the Monkey King told the Buddha that no man may become God. They can all attain the level of a Hanuman. Look it up. It's no secret. It's all there. And so, if the Orion is the great hunter Nimrod, and if Nimrod is the only undefeated Sun Wukong, and the Sun Wukong went to the Buddha, the great wise one, and the great wise one told him he had to attain the wisdom of the ages before he could rule. And so he went on a journey to the west. Where would he go? Where would he go? If he's going on a journey to the west, where would he go? So at that time, the west was Africa. So he went to the Congo. So this is why they call him the king of the Congo. And they use the symbol of the gorilla, King Kong, because the gorilla is the only major mammal on the continent of Africa you will not find in the hieroglyphics. Now you got to ask yourself why. If they knew about chimpanzees and orangutans in Asia, well, not orangutans because they wrote about them over in India, but if they knew about chimpanzees in Africa, if they knew about baboons in Africa, and they knew about the elephant in Africa, and the lion, and the wildebeest, and they knew about stuff in the water that y'all ain't even seen yet in Africa, how the hell they didn't know about the gorilla? Well, spoiler. The only reason the gorilla is not in the hieroglyphics is the last totem clan to rise on earth before the ascent would be the gorilla clan. So they were not allowed to use that symbol because the reign of Hanuman had not come. The reign of the Monkey King, crowned in the Congo, had not come. So they can't use his symbols prematurely. If they try to use his symbols, they would violate the rules and lose power instantly and ruin everybody's ascent, even though it's been evil, wicked, and painful. The whole purpose of giving her only begotten son is that no human be thrown away like trash and nobody be left behind who does not choose to be left behind. The only way you can choose to be left behind in the final ascension of this era is by choosing to do things that bring down your natural higher vibratory rate. You have to draw yourself down to becoming lesser than what you are. The more you try to become your best self, the more you can ascend and the more worthy you are to call yourself righteous. And this is why I say it's easier for a rich man to enter in through an eye of a needle, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is a realization. When you get the comforts and you stop doing the self-work because of the comforts of the life, you forfeit your right to ascend because you are content being less than yourself in the name of a dollar. You're content with being less than yourself in the name of a dollar. So as long as the money is more important than your family, you ain't gonna make it. If the money is more important than your people, than other humans, you're not gonna make it. I'm telling you now, the money is the mark of the beast. Always have been, always will be. The money, the greenback, is the mark of the beast. But it's not the money. You gotta keep this in mind, because it said the mark is in your hands and in your head, holding the money and thinking about it all day. When that's your only purpose in life is to make money, you are worthless. When your only purpose in life is to make money, you are worthless. You are guaranteed not to ascend because you will not do the internal work that every Mason must do. He will not prove himself worthy before the Lord. In other words, these women is the precursor, the first recognition of your righteousness. And they're going to pass you. They're going to raise you and pass you before mama. And then mama going to call you approved or disapproved. Many are called, few are chosen. Y'all got to remember that. They took all of our story. They watered it down. They mixed it up. They added smear campaigns, damnation, condemnation, divide and conquer, separation, corruption. They gave us physical diseases and mental diseases. And all of these things is to stop our ascent. But without the opposition, you would never know how strong you really are. And we, being guardians of the galaxy, always knew we were strong. You always heard us talk about, even when they told us we wasn't shit, how strong we were, how great we were, never knowing that we wasn't even showing our greatness yet. The pyramids pale in comparison to the work that we did in the cleanup after these Babylonian vampires, bloodsuckers, that required the blood rights. That's why it tell you clearly, the Old Testament God required blood. The New Testament Christ requires righteousness. Do the math, and it's in your face. So it tell you in the New Testament that the Christ came that you can be free from the law and you can walk in grace. How do you do that? Because apparently we're not free from the law. What is the law? It's the law of the Levite. What's the law of the Levite? They're all in there. It's the law of levies, Levites, levies, and liens. Don't pay them folks no attention. I got you. Me and you gonna talk later. The system of levies and liens is what they call the Levite system. That's why it leads with the word levy. The word levy is spelled Levi. They want you to worship God because God is a truth. Now, if you know Grimm's Law of Grammar say all vowels and translation are interchangeable. One of the 12 tribes is called Gad, G-A-D, for they sing the truth. Gad is God. So you know you're worshiping now. So when you say Gad, you're still in their system. Gad is God. Not gut, not the German word for good. That's deception. I'm finna crack open some of this stuff before I wrap this video up. But that's a deception. Gad is who you calling on when you call God. One of the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's why your prayers don't get answered, because he don't have the authority to answer them. Gad, that you're calling God, one of the sons of Israel, is not authorized to answer the prayer. That's why you have to attach it to the amen, because the amen has to exonerate him immediately when you say the prayer and call on God. The amen, the one who is ruling by deceit and deception, behind the scenes, that one has to immediately exonerate the tribe of Gad under the law of Levi. Now, under the law of Levi, when Levi issue a levy or declares you erring, and he issues a rent or a decree, a rent of war, a war rent for your detention, a warrant for your arrest, your restriction. He's binding you in the name of the law. You're bound in the name of the law. When you are arrested, the word arrest means to bound or restrict in the name of the law. So now, how do you get bound? Bound in the name of the law. You get bound in the name of the law as the resort of the war rent A war rant is a declaration of war on an individual. But it's metaphysical, not physical. But it will leak physical. But it starts metaphysically with the war rant. The war rant is a decree or a declaration of war. This is mysticism, and it's not what you would call law and truth. This all of the stuff that's energetically being placed on you as a spell. The war rant is actually a spell. The spell binds you. In order to free yourself from the spell, you have to identify the rant of war. In other words, you have to identify, yes, GAD, the war rant. And you have to protest it. You have to become a Protestant. But when you become a Protestant and protest the war rant, you have to realize that you're doing it in front of one of the brothers, or a Judahite, or a judge. The judges are Judah. Judah is a judge, right? So that's why they're telling you that the Son of Man is from the line of Judah, but he's not of Judah. It don't make no sense. He's from the line of Judah, but he's not Jewish or a Judahite. He's not a Levite. He's not of the lawgivers. He's not of the lawgivers. And so, who does he fall under? He falls directly under the one that says beloved, or Dawid. He falls under David because he is an expression of Solomon. How do you know? Solomon means the soul of man. What's the soul of man? The soul of man is a piece of gold that goes in your heart. It's the soul light. It's the ray inside of you. It's your pyramid, the pyro, the fire in the middle. Right? So, when they gave us all of these stories, they never sourced them for you, because that's your job. The right to discovery is why they created a library. In order to bury everything in lies. Because you got to dig out the truth. That's your job. So they told you they destroyed the libraries of Alexandria. No. They in the Vatican. That's the Vatican library now. Because Rome won that part of the war. You got to remember, they called it Alexandria. Who conquered? Alexander. Who was Alexander? Alexander was the one who went in the Indus Valley to get the military doctrine that he needed to subjugate the rest of the world. The caste system. The caste system had to be adapted. How do you clean up the genetic mess? You tie it back in the source. They call it tying into the vine. If they don't tie into the vine, the genetics fall apart. So, black people that's been oppressed for 400 years wonder why we don't get no awards at the Oscars and the Grammys, and why they don't recognize us when we sell 50 million records the same as they do with Justin Timberlake. You got the pyramids. You don't need that shit. You created music. You don't need no Grammy. You created that shit. You wrote the fucking notes. The original notes of music was written by black women, or as they call black goddesses, that they call them enchantresses. This is where it come from. So, if the white people that you see in the Caucasus, Yaqub's grafted devil, as the Nation of Islam call them, the word devil means your enemy. That's all it means. In nation doctrine, it means that which is not original. If that which is not original becomes in mediating conflict with that which is original until a synthesis is found. Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic. You know? So you got to find the synthesis. So what do? You tie in that which is defective into that which is not defective. For a period of time, you will oscillate between defect and no defect until balance is met. And that's the law of mind. So, the reason why black people agreed to this suffering and oppression, because it was the fastest way. And we were the only ones strong enough. And they was the only ones heartless enough. And when you put it all together and you do the math, you realize it wouldn't work no other way. We were strong enough, smart enough, and wise enough to do it, but we was too loving, kind, compassionate, and caring. We couldn't bring ourselves to oppress ourselves in order to clean the shit up. They never had a family. They never had what you call men of big affairs before the rise. Go back and look at the history from an outside perspective. You see it right there. So Mama wanted them to know what it was like to rule. And she wanted them to understand what it was like to be in power, have power, hold power, and fight the corruption that comes with the power. And so you hear them saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is all what we're talking about. And so, in summarizing it, the white people that was originally there don't exist no more. The level of birth defects is diminishing, so they have to artificially construct birth defects using the modern medicine and the poisoning of the child in the womb to simulate the birth defects that would not otherwise be there. When they stop doing that is when we tell them that we're not going to allow our women to be experimented on while they're gestating our next generation. And we will stop using hospitals for pregnant women, and all over you'll see what they call doula centers, midwifery, the original stuff. The doula center was the true source of healing for Earth. And I see you giving me hearts because you're going to be in there on that doula center. You can give me a whole bunch of more of them. I see you. Anyway, so the doula center is where pregnant women go to gestate in peace. Now, the doula center is only necessary for special women because once the family structure is set up in its proper order, the doula center will be in the center of the village. And the women will naturally go there at the time they discover they're pregnant. And they'll stay there until they give birth because they're going to get certain things in the doula center that they're not going to ever get in the hospital. The hospital was never meant for sick people. You got to remember hospitals were hospitality places for sojourners to go at night. Those were the original priestesses of Neith. And that's why the nurses wear the white uniform. Those were the uniforms of Neith. Those were her dress. You go back and look in the pyramids, and you'll be surprised at how much Neith is dressed like a modern-day nurse. Because her place of hospitality had nothing to do with the places of sex that they turned into brothels in the rape campaign, in the subjugation of the woman. And so now we got the whole story laid out in front of us when Constantine is putting this cross-dresser in the place of the Black Madonna in Rome. And because he done this dude been masquerading as the Black Madonna ever since. He's an imposter. The whole male priest, the only priest should be there is what you call your Swiss Guard, which is the protectors of the external reaches of the Madonna priesthood, or what they call your Catholicism, which is the cataholics, which goes back again to the stars tying into the planet, which is your zodiacal sign of Leo, which is the Sphinx, which is the female guardian of Earth, who sits and waits and looks to the west for the son of man to rise in the place where the three Orions, Orion Township, and Orion Township and Lake Orion, where the three Orions are, in the right hand of the mother, which is the state of Michigan, which is in the land of the chief of the two feathers, which is the land of the one who speaks the truth. The two feathers is he's standing on his second. All you Moors know what I'm talking about. He's standing on his second and he's speaking from the position of truth. And if he's speaking the truth, that'll go ties directly back into your revelation that he spoke and the two-edged sword came out of his mouth. For the truth cut both ways. It cut the righteous and the unrighteous because don't nobody want to hear it, because don't nobody want to be accountable. But it's too late. We've all been held accountable. All we got to do is accept that we have been held accountable. We paid our pittance, and now we need to unify in order to escape the destruction of the unrighteous, because nothing unrighteous can ascend, only the righteous. And they're all humans. Check this. All humans now have the right to ascend. Don't mean they're going to ascend. That don't mean they're going to taste eternal life, because you have the right to eternal life. You can forego that. Some of them thought it was a joke and literally for money on the table, stacks of money, sold their soul. I found a way out for them. Mama said find a way out for them. Now, whether they wise enough to make allegiance to her or not is up to them. But they sold it. And now they are a permanent slave in eternity to Enlil. He bought it. You know who the devil is now. And you know why he can transform himself into an angel of light. Because he's an avian. He's an avian. When I say avian, I mean he's from a bird clan. A reptilian bird clan. He's a shapeshifter. He deceived Lilith twice. Neith. He pretended to be the Adam Cadmon who couldn't perform to get her drunk and try to rape her. She called his ass on his bullshit. Then he disgraced her and called for her to be judged. Then he pretended to be the son and shapeshifted and condemned his so-called sister and to the dismal abyss for 1,000 years. And they went on a smear campaign. They feared her. They called her a rebellious woman, just like her mom. I did the story of Lilith already. Go back and check it out. You don't know what I'm talking about. The unity doctrine is the only redemption for humanity as a collective. Otherwise, the only ones who will ascend are the ones who have been doing what is considered to be righteous, not by what no book say, because righteousness is written in your heart. It's written on your soul. No book can tell you to do what you know in your heart is right. If a book tells you to do something you know in your heart is wrong, no matter how hard you try, something in you is going to rebel. Something in you is going to rebel. Now, so the black people paid the price, a small group, and it caused a conflict among black people. Because some black people said, you assimilationist ass Negroes, all of y'all need to die too. Because they were sent by Enlil to undermine the program. Because he don't never want nothing associated with the woman to prosper. Every time the woman want to do something, he want to kill it. So we got to restore ice skating. We got to restore ballet. We got to restore the singing. We got to restore the dancing. Everywhere you look, we have to see singing and dancing women and children with no alcohol, no PSP, and no LSD. And no cocaine, no heroin, dancing and singing, you're going to immediately feel that energy. You're going to immediately feel that energy shifted. When we flip this grid, anything that ain't right won't stay. I'm going to say it again because phone's going to be dying soon, and I only put enough on to do this video. I only wanted to charge enough. I wanted to cut off at the end of the video. It's about to do that. And so the ritual dance has to be specific. It has to be performed and written by the modern day women, incorporating old techniques and new techniques. In other words, tying alpha to omega. Y'all got to pay attention. Tying alpha to omega. Because as it was in the beginning, it has to be in the end. So now, all women have mitochondria. And the white man hate the white woman because she had the first right to ascend before him. Now you know. The white man hate the white woman because she had the right to ascend before him. Because her genetics was cleaned up first at the mitochondrial level. And she was able to give and receive love as a mother. And it pissed Enlil off. And he screamed, and they say his voice was like many waters, and it shook both the heaven and the earth. So now you know. Babylon versus Egypt. And this is why your Egyptian pantheon and your Egyptian story, if you go back, you'll remember in the story of Isaiah. No, not Isaiah. Elijah. And they poured all of this, they got all these priests out here trying to ignite this pyre of wood on fire. And he asked them about his Egyptian deities. Where your Egyptian guys now, huh? They ain't around, are they? Watch man. Fire. Same as in the story of Exodus, when they talk about the so-called Moses going there, and Moses is asking them, where are your Egyptian gods now? Never telling you Moses was an Egyptian god. Never telling you that the Moses that was raised in the Pharaoh's house was the Pharaoh to be, and became the Pharaoh. And that is this is why the Jews were waiting on Moses. Pay attention. The Jews is waiting on Moses because the Moses is the son of man. And they know that the Christ in the New Testament is not a man. So they're not waiting on her. The Zionists, as they call, the ones that wrote the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which is the current blueprint for world domination that they following, not followed, past tense, ing, current tense. They're doing it now. If you see everything that they're controlling in the protocols, and you step back and you look at everything they control in real life, and they are exactly the same thing, it takes all of the guesswork out of it. It's the blueprint. But where did they get it? And who is these elders? These wise elders was a military contingent put together, not even in Israel. They was put together in the mountains of Europe where the catastrophe was discovered. And these people were called Khazars. They put together the protocols, the Khazarians. The Khazarians are not even human. They are Gulam, a whole race of Gulam, and they're trying to overthrow humans, both reptilian and mammalian humans. And they're trying to get in the middle of the conflict and put themselves as the rulers of it. But Enlil did that. Enlil did that. And so you have two other groups that didn't know what to do because of the war between the Moors and the Christians, the Islamic Moors and the Christians. They became Hebrews as Sephardi and Ashkenazi. And that pissed off the guy they called Hitler because he knew that all three of these groups was not the real so-called Jew. Not the madman they made him out to be. You got to remember that the victors, that the history is written by the ones who win, not by the ones who lose. But if you look at the context, what happened to all? They all came to the United States and got jobs under Operation Paperclip. All the ones who wasn't part of Enlil's domination over here was tried in Auschwitz and executed. Or not Auschwitz, they was tried in the Geneva Convention. They was tried in Geneva, Switzerland, in a neutral country, and put to death. But he wasn't bad. And this is where I'm gonna end this at, because we in 1940s now, and we came a long way seeing how blacks accepted this oppression. They needed to set up a false Israel to deceive you from where the real Holy Land is. And they looked all over. They was originally trying to set up in Brazil. You gotta remember this when we talked about Brazil earlier in Brazilianization. They originally was going to set up in Brazil, what we call Israel today. They first had to get enough sympathy on a global platform for the world to accept a hostile regime being installed as a foreign government in somebody's home. You needed a whole lot of global support, meaning that the military support for it must be so overwhelming that wherever they do it, everybody's going to comply. So now, it's more effective to start a new nation on the backs of the wealthy than it is on the backs of the poor. The wealthy can come into a strange place if they got the means and pay everybody that's already there to do their work, whereas the poor got to physically do the work and build it themselves. Basic economics. Now, that is the state of Israel as a distraction from the true Holy Land, because the true Holy Land is never going to be called Israel. It never has been and it never will be. It's in both the Kemetic hieroglyph and it's in the Sumerian tablets as the Absu. The Africans call it Zululand. And it also encompasses a very specific area called the Congo. That's the Holy Land. I'm telling y'all where the Holy Land at. If you don't believe me, go send some reporters to ask Credu Mutwa or Goodwill Zwilithini, where is the Holy Land? But I'm gonna tell you this, as soon as they ask them, they're gonna ask you where I am. They're gonna flat out say, where is he? If you ask either one of them two, they're gonna say, where is the sun? They're gonna want to know where I am for sending you to ask them. So whenever one of your reporters go over there and ask them, let them know that when they ask them, they're gonna want to know where I'm at, and they're not gonna be friendly. All of that friendly shit gonna be gone as soon as you ask them these questions. Where is the real Holy Land? Is it Zululand and the Congo? When you ask them that, all of the game's gonna be done. There's nobody on the motherland gonna be nice to nothing that don't cooperate with me. And there's some shit over there y'all ain't never heard of or seen. When you see the story,
I couldn't find it. And they assured me that as far as they knew, one of them had like 35 years in psychiatry and psychology. One was a psychologist for over 45 years. The other one was a psychiatrist for over 40 years. And none of them had heard of anybody having the audacity to do a psychological profile. In the since it became known on this character from the Bible.
Now, with that, let me just interject my little bit of my knowledge from what I learned versus what I was taught versus what I learned afterwards in awakening process. We see God in the Bible somewhat as schizophrenic and bipolar and can't make up his mind about his love or hatred for his creation, when in fact we're not talking about one being. We're talking about more than one. We're talking about at least two majors and then minor characters.
Okay, so that goes back to what that's the schizophrenic tendencies and the sociopathic personality disorder. Bobby E. Wright wrote a book called The Psychopathic Racial Personality. That's the God character summed up in under 200 pages.
But if he is making this so-called God into one being with all of these personalities, I tend to disagree. I see multiple beings,
right? Because you're looking at it for what the story it for what the story is saying in its original language.
Right.
I'm looking at the God that they given the people
in the Bible.
They saying it's the God of the Bible.
The so-called Bible. Well, I mean, they created the Bible anyway, so
right.
It is the God of their Bible. They created the Bible.
Right, but even that, the character, right? We know that the character comes from a series of gods merged into one person. Well, we call it a condensed God formula. They take all of the gods, give them one name as one person, and you change those names in the translation, and the layman will never know.
Right.
But the biblical seminarians know they lying to the people, and in order to get they preaching certification, they just go along with the lie.
That's what we do.
Go along to get along. So if you continuously go along with the lie, you can't liberate nobody or free nobody's mind because you live in a lie.
But I'm gonna say this, Rod, just like I've said when the times when Grand Sheik has made this sort of blanket statement about all preachers already know, and all preachers do not know, because all preachers don't go to seminary. All preachers, and if they do, like me, they may go to a college that has a specific evangelistic focus, and is not even in comparative religion. They're always putting Christianity up as this is the example, and anything other than is an abomination. So they basically, when they do comparative religion, it's not to give you an opportunity to see that there are other sources of information that are historical and factual that this stuff is based on. Most preachers sit in churches and have sat and listened to preachers from the pulpit, got pulled into believing that they were called to do the same thing that preacher or bishop or whoever was doing, and then they get to do it, and they do it from their heart. It is later on when they get into the inner workings of what goes on behind closed doors in the back room, and the conversations and the humanity and lack of divinity of those men and women of the so-called cloth. It is then that they see the hypocrisy, and I'm speaking from experience, then that you see the hypocrisy of what's really going on, and you got to question whether any of this ish was true, because they're just out there doing this thing, but they're living a whole different lifestyle. So I, in defense of the ones who went in with their heart and soul in it, and didn't know that it was what it is, then I'm saying all don't know. But what I do have a problem with those who, once you find out, that they continue to perpetuate that.
Well, one of the things about those who go through the seminary that know, and those who come in as they call those hands-on preachers. They was taught hands-on by somebody in the church that helped them to learn how to basically run the church. Those are not as responsible as the ones who go read it in its original language, understand that it don't say what they're telling you to say.
Absolutely.
It's a writing by Khalil Gibran called John the Madman that expresses the sentiment of you telling these people lies. I'm gonna tell them what's really in the book, right? There's so much stuff in the Bible that you can use it for any form of manipulation you choose to, if the people don't understand their own spiritual development. It becomes a easy tool of exploitation for those seeking to be wealthy. It's a way to get a whole lot of material gain for well-placed lies. They don't have to know they're lying when they come in, but at some point, the discovery is imminent. You cannot continuously read that Bible and preach, because when you start preaching in front of a group of people, most people don't know this. You start off, you might be a fraud, but you start getting messages. Hey, stop telling them lies to the people, right? And sometimes the message might